This is the fifth week in a series called Humans. And what I've asked, this is the kind of the disclaimer ahead of time, is that don't just look at it as one sermon and then walk out the door and go, that was good or bad, I liked it or I didn't understand it. It's more of a journey. The goal is to deposit us in December at Christmas and have a greater understanding of why Jesus became a human, so that you and I could understand and appreciate that when this baby shows up on planet Earth and the angels of heaven begin to rejoice, hopefully we'll see, oh, I understand now why they're rejoicing. So it's more of a journey. We're 5 weeks in, and all of the series are on our YouTube. They're on our website. The best thing to do, though, would be scan the big green QR code out there, and everything is there. All the sermons. But I do ask this. I ask that you go and study it. It just helps to kind of get it in your heart. How many of you know if you listen again and again and again, it kind of gets in your bones instead of your head? And that's just a good thing to help answer. So let's jump into it. Here's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about evil and to try to understand what is it. And this is a very difficult subject because it creates a problem to even understand what is evil. If I ask Rosa what it is, she may have an understanding versus if I spin over here and ask Mark what it is. And we all kind of have a different understanding of evil, and that evil is going to be based on how you were raised, the culture you were in, the denomination you grew up in. So it becomes hard to sit in front of maybe 200 people and go, oh, define evil for me. Rainey, tell me what evil is. And try to figure out what that is. When we do it, we'll get a lot of answers on the wall that we could, well, this is evil, and that's definitely evil. And again, what's going to determine that as a human is where you were born and what culture and religion you were birthed into. There's some people that believe in the Middle East and some of the cultures there that if a woman is caught in adultery, meaning sex before she gets married, their culture says take the woman out, take her outside of town, bury her whole, put her up to her neck, and then stone her to death just for having sex outside of marriage. And so we would go, well, that's evil. We watch that from America and go, God, that's so evil. What these women in these Middle Eastern cultures that have this extremist religion have to put up with. So that's a no-brainer evil. But if I go over there and tell them it's evil, the reason it's not evil to them is they were raised in a culture with a religion that says if you commit adultery, we stone you. So then you come to America and go, well, what is evil? Well, all you got to do is just log in online and see a shirt that says Queers for Palestine. And we're all like, yeah, okay, we support, right? We support gays in Palestine and people marching in the streets, Queers for Palestine. But the reality of that is, if we sent somebody over to Palestine who was a homosexual, they would kill them. So here we can march for what we think is evil, but when we get over there, it will be evil. And over here, it's not evil to them. So you understand what I mean. Let's bring it a little more close to home. Because we're raised in the South, where part of the South you were raised in, to what kind of denomination you were raised in, will determine what's evil for you. It will determine, especially in the deep South, it's evil for a white to marry a black. You shouldn't do it. And it's like, what? This is 2024. What are you talking about? But when you were raised in a family, when you were raised in a neighborhood, in a culture, you take up all of those beliefs that feel right to you because they've never been challenged outside of that culture you live in. And when somebody steps in and says, that's kind of evil, you do know that, right? It's hard for my brain to know. Is that right? Because daddy raised me, granddaddy raised me this way. Come to churches and just ask ourselves what is evil in a church. It just depends on what denomination you're in. Some churches, it's evil to have a tattoo. You're going to go to hell if you have a tattoo. That's mind-blowing. You say, surely people don't believe that. Yes. I had Pastor Phil, who works here, worked for a church, and the pastor said, if you have a tattoo, you will go to hell. So that's a harsh statement, right? But there are people that believe that. There are people that believe speaking in tongues is of the devil. They preach that. So you understand when we say what is evil, it's going to be very hard to land the plane on, well, what really is evil? I would have said back in the 70s, 1970, I would have said, you know, a guy and a guy sleeping together, that feels kind of evil. Because I was raised male-female. But in 2024, I know for us older people it might be shocking, but for the kids that are 20 and under, it's normal now. Gay, lesbian, it's just part of the world, and we accept everybody now. So even to walk in downstairs to the teenagers, the junior high that are going to be meeting down there and go, hey, we just want y'all to know that LGBTQ is evil. They're going to look at you like you're an idiot because they probably have friends that are LGBT. They probably know trans kids in their school. So now we're in the deep south going, well, gosh, what can I tell my kids is evil? What is wrong? Because this is my take. I'm 60, so I got a little time under me, and I hope to have a lot more. But here's what I know about humans. We're good at defining evil because we always move the needle. As soon as it gets evil, we just kind of scoot the needle a little bit. So that what is perceived as evil in the 70s is normalized now. Because here's what I know about humans, religious or not, we keep evil at bay by normalizing evil to now be good, and that which was once evil we now call good, so that we're always just pushing the line so that we can accept ourselves. Now, and we do that without religion. We just move the line so that we can all accept ourselves. So what I'm going to attempt to do today is find a common denominator, regardless of your denomination or what you think, what your daddy told you, or what your culture tells you, like a common denominator that we could go, guaranteed, this is just baseline 101, this is what evil is. So let's jump into it. I'm going to just build a little Lego house of thoughts and then come to this thing of, well, what is evil in the room that would common denominator all of us, and we could either go, I is evil or I ain't evil. Bad English, but it felt good. I is evil, I ain't evil. And you can elbow your husband and go, that's evil. So that we'll all know what that is. All right, again, it's just a simple thought. Let's jump into it. Here's what we've said. In the beginning, God made the heaven and earth. So where we're going to start is that God made the heavens, God made the earth, and included in that has to be the spirit beings. We would call them angels. That's where the devil comes from. He's part of that crew of angels. The story goes that he was one of them created by God, and he kind of led a rebellion. But the Bible also says about this, it gets interesting, about Jesus in Colossians chapter 1. Christ is the visible image of the invisible God, and he existed before anything was created, and he's supreme over all of it. 2 weeks ago, if you want to go back and listen, I went through the 7 days of creation and said, in every day of creation, there is Christ. The days of creation weren't just so God could go, yay, aren't I a good creator? Every day was another layer of the invisible world peeled back so we could see the invisible God visibly. Let there be light. God is light. Boom, you know. So every day was my belief is the 6 days of creation were a revelation of Christ, culminating in the 6th day of a human, which Christ will become a human in the future. So therefore, we know this about the beginning. Before it ever existed, there was Christ, who we will later call Jesus when he comes in the flesh. Christ existed in the beginning as an invisible God, but he becomes visible in what we call the Gospels, and we go, yay, Christmas, that's the Jesus we're talking about. And they were all there. However, Jesus gives us some insight. How many of you are glad that the one that was there can give insight about what was going on? Now, here's how cool, that's probably not a good choice of words. Here's how incredible Jesus is. In the Gospel of John, chapter 8, Jesus says, if God were your Father, you would love me, because I have come from God, and I'm not here on my own, but he sent me. Why can't you understand what I'm saying? It's because you can't even hear me. Before we go to the next verse, think this through a minute. Do you know that there are things that God knows that he would love to download to us, but he even admits your brain probably can't handle it? Right. And I like that, because what it tells me about God is he's bigger than you can imagine. And if you're not careful, you will put him in a box. and you will try to understand him from your little box. And the worst thing to do is take the creator of all things and put him in your little understanding and go, I'm going to try to understand him. You cannot understand the living God. He is beyond understanding. He's beyond comprehension. So how does a beyond understanding, beyond comprehension God get to be known? He just starts telling you stuff. He says, let me just tell you about me. Because we even quote these verses, my thoughts aren't your thoughts, and my ways aren't your ways. Now, here's what Jesus says. I'm trying to download something to you, humans, but you can't hear me. You can't even understand it. My thinking is, if you go study this chapter, you will realize why he's saying that is they're so religious. Now here's my opinion. Sometimes you can be so religious that you miss the very God you should be worshiping. You're religious, but you don't know him. I mean, you might know all the little creeds of your Bible and the things you've highlighted, but you don't know him. And so Jesus, the invisible God, has stepped into the visible world. He says, I'm Jesus. I'm going to tell you some things. Now, here's what's fun. He, Jesus, takes us back to the time before creation. He was there, and he gives us this verse. For you are of your father, your children of your father, the devil. And you love to do the evil things he does. He was a murderer from the beginning. He has always hated the truth because there's no truth in him. And when he lies, it's consistent with his character. For he's a liar and the father of all lies. Now think this through a minute. Jesus, standing in, I guess AD 30, several thousand years removed from creation of Adam and Eve, he just kind of launches us back to the beginning as a casual conversation. He goes, well, I'm about to tell you something you can't understand. If you could hear me, you would. I'm about to tell you that there was this dude called the devil that was there in the beginning, and from the beginning of time, he's been a murderer, he's hated truth, and his character's a liar, and this is going to hurt you a little bit. You're his children. I mean, that's not a good message. I thought you came to preach the gospel. That doesn't sound like good news to me at all. You're literally calling me names? Well, we get an understanding of what's happening. So now here's what's interesting. Not only was God there in the beginning, not only was Christ there in the beginning, but we find out that one of the created beings that God created, without getting into the story of where the devil came from, maybe another day, another dollar, but that we have this being that was Lucifer, that was an angel, that rebelled, that turned into the devil, and Jesus defines him as a murderer, a liar, and he hates truth. How many of you want to buddy up with him? All right, nobody would, right? Like, that's the truth. Nobody would really want to buddy up with that. But we're humans, and he'll become our best friend. Listen to this. Once you were dead, this again in Ephesians 2, once you were dead because of your disobedience and your many sins, you used to live in sin like the rest of the world. And then this, obeying the devil, powerful, powerful thought. This is, stretches your brain here. He was the commander of the powers of the unseen world. He's a spirit that works in the heart of those who disobey. Which tells me this, to be disobedient isn't just that you disobeyed mom who said don't put the bean up your nose. Disobedience is a spirit that works inside of humans. You can't discipline that out. You can't discipline out a spirit. You have to deal with it. Now, the reality of evil is we don't understand what's really going on. We think evil is I broke a rule. So tell me what your rule is, and I swear I won't break it, right? And we'll become best friends as long as I don't break your rules, and then you call me a bad person. Evil is on a different set of beliefs than rules. Because here's my thinking. Do you know that there's a lot of good people who aren't Christians who keep the rules and are good people? I mean, they're genuinely people who aren't Christian that act better than some Christians. So I can't just say good and bad is based on have Jesus in your heart, because there's a lot of people that go, I got Jesus in my heart, but you're crooked, and I wouldn't want to serve the God you serve. And then there's some people that are just hellions. And I'm like, they could probably be my best friend because they've got my back. They're not going to talk about me, right? So it's difficult to even categorize where we all fit. Now, this is what he says now, that this devil was a murderer, he was a liar, he hates truth, and a profound thing, he commanded the dark powers. Now we're starting to understand that maybe if this devil was kind of the problem in the beginning, and this is before humans got here. This is pre-Adam and Eve, that the devil rebels pre-Adam and Eve. He's been a murderer and a liar and hates truth. He's commanded dark power. So God, being God, says, here's what I'm going to do. The earth was formless and empty, Genesis 1:2. And darkness covered the deep waters, and the Spirit of God was hovering above the waters. Here's something interesting. In the days of creation that we know to be true, day 1, 2, 3, day 1 is light, day 2 is sky, day 3 are trees and grass, day 4 is sun, moon, stars, day 5 are fish and birds, day 6 are animals and humans. In those 6 days, if you go back and read, not in any 6 days does God create water. Water's already here. Water came before let there be light. Water came before let there be a sky. So the interesting thing about our creation that we call creation, the 7 days of creation, is in verse 2, before day 1, let there be light, there was this dark, chaos, formless world that sat under it, the earth and the trees and everything, because the Bible will say God had to call that back up out of the water. So the assumption is that when the devil rebelled, God's like, and God floods his entire world. And he judges the devil with water. He judges his kingdom, he judges his rule, he judges his reign, and God said enough is enough. So Genesis 1, God creates the heaven and earth, and that's in all the spirit beings. Half a quarter of the spirit beings rebel with the devil, and they start doing their thing with dark powers. And God's like, no, that's done. You're not going to rule and reign over that. God judges that. Now, here's the cool thing about that. Just so you understand that at the very beginning of let there be light, there was this body of water covering earth. Why do you think water is so powerful? Because water is a sign of God's judgment upon evil. This is why in Genesis 6, what does he send to flood the earth? He sends water. And then water wipes out all the humans on planet Earth. Water becomes the way that God deals with evil. God is going to deal with evil by the judgment of water. But then he steps up to Noah's day and says, I'm not going to use water anymore. I've got another plan. Well, why wouldn't God use water? It seems to work. Because God's plan is bigger than just let me deal with Satan. So this is why when we come to the New Testament, water baptism is so powerful. Because water baptism is, I'm going under the water as a human, saying that I deserve judgment and death, but then I come back up out of the water and go, but I have received new life. This is why the pigs or the demons will ask Jesus, can we go into the pigs? And he says, yeah, go into the pigs. And as soon as he goes into the pigs, the demons, what did the pigs do? They run into the water. Why did the pigs run into the water? It seems they should just run over the hillside and go, yay, somebody lives in us. They run into the water because the demons of hell knew that water was the place of judgment. And so the demons come out, go into the pigs, run off the hillside, and kill themselves. Why do you think Jesus walked on the water? He didn't walk on the water because he needed to get to the other side real quick. He's God. He could have burped and got to the other side. He could have just said, and ended up on the other side. But the Bible says that Jesus, in the middle of the thing, started walking on the water. Why would Jesus walk on water? Because for us, it's a cool Bible story. But the Bible wasn't written then, so it has to be more than a Bible story. It was not just a Bible story, it was a statement to the dark world that a human being is going to walk over the very judgment of God. Jesus was saying, judgment shall be triumphed by mercy. In other words, I'm going to show you that this human being is going to walk on this water. And when I'm walking on this water, I'm making a statement that the mercy of God shall triumph over judgment. And every devil of hell steps back and goes, what is this? You can't have a human walk on water. That's impossible. How could a human walk on water? Water was used to punish humans. Water was used, that's how God killed humans. That's how God judged our kingdom. And Jesus is like, well, I am the creation of that kingdom. I am the creator, and I am the one that has come to take judgment upon myself. And now I'm going to walk over the very judgment. This is why baptism is so important. It is a slap into the face of Satan that I no longer live by judgment. Blah, 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 blah. I live by mercy. And mercy triumphs over judgment. It's the beautiful thing of the gospel. But don't just stop there. He tells Peter says, look, if that's you, please tell me to come to you. And he's like, okay, come. And then Peter, this is powerful. Peter takes his little foot, steps out in the water and goes, this is good. And then he steps out in the water. And for the first time that we know of in human history, a human that's not God is walking on the water. That's before David Blaine got here with his magic. A human being walking on water. I love what Chris Redmond was telling me. We were talking about this last night, and he was downloading this thought of the moment. Do you understand that the moment Peter stepped out of the boat, it wasn't so you could say, isn't walking on the water so cool? Don't you wish we could all walk on water? It was a statement to the dark powers that not only can the Son of God walk on water, but to anyone he calls, anyone he touches, anyone he revitalizes can do the same. Peter, come, you can walk in my mercy rather than my judgment. And Peter steps out. And he's like, oh my God, I'm walking on. What was he doing? He was standing in the mercy of God, overcoming judgment of sin. And then just like any human, you can't walk on water. Oh, I can't walk on water. Blah, 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 blah. Jesus picks him up, puts him back in the boat. Water was here in the beginning before a human walked on it, before Peter walked on it, because God wanted water to be a sign of judgment. If you've never been water baptized, it's not just some religious thing we do to get a t-shirt. It's that when you go under, every devil of hell knows I no longer can control him through guilt and shame. He now walks in the power of God Almighty. So God puts a line in the sand, draws this line in the sand, and the line in the sand that God is going to draw now, that the whole earth, Genesis 1:2, is covered with water. God is going to give what we call the 7 days of creation. Just a side note, this is how the earth could be billions of years old. It's billions of years old because you don't know how long it sat underwater. It could have sat underwater for eons of time because there was no time yet. This is all eternal stuff out here. So what we call Mother Earth could have stayed in that dark, isolated water for eons of time. And then God's like, let there be light. And God draws a line in the sand. And God steps back into earth. And when he steps back into earth, this has been our foundational scripture. So God created human beings in his own image. Now this is mind-blowing. Not to us. We know the Bible. But can you imagine if you're one of these spirit beings? And for the first time in your whatever life you've been given by the Creator, you step back and go, what the Sam Hill is that? And they say, well, that's God here on this earth. That's him in the flesh, in his own image. He has created his image here. Now, this creates a problem. Not only does it create a problem, it creates a cosmic war. Because this devil who has been judged, who's a murderer, who's a liar, who's a deceiver, who owns the cosmic powers of darkness, has now been stirred. Because now this God has created a being that's going to be very difficult to whip. Why? Why is this being that God created, male and female, in his image, going to be such a hard problem? The reason it's a hard problem is because how is the devil going to kill a being that can't be killed? Because Adam was made eternal. Adam was made with the ability to live forever. The only way Adam could die would be to eat a tree. So what we must assume is when God made Adam and Eve, God made them in such a way that you could just live forever. So there's really no reason to count how old you are, your birthdays, because I don't even need to count time right now, because why would I count time when you can just live forever? Do you understand that one? Like, you've been made eternal. So this devil out here looks at this eternal being and thinks, now how can I beat this guy? I can't beat him. I can't kill him. He's more powerful than me. How do you know he's more powerful? Because he's in the image of God. I cannot take him out. I cannot outlast him because he can live forever like me. So I have a problem here, because this being is going to rule and reign the earth and multiply. Now here's a problem. I think just because of how we're raised. The typical story is, on day 6, God made humans. On day 7, God rested. And on day 8, Adam ate the fruit. Like just one day. He's that stupid. It just took him a day, and he's like, day 8. Right when they woke up, oh, that's a good rest. Day 8. And they eat, and then 930 years later, he dies. That is an assumption that's not biblical, because we have no idea how long Adam and Eve were alive before they disobeyed. They, because they were eternal, they could have lived for 10,000 years before they ate the fruit. You just assume they ate it on day 1. You don't even know how old they are when they were made, because we live in a time bubble. They weren't made an age because they were made in an eternal state. There's no reason to have an age. That's why once Jesus returns and we hit eternal life, I don't have to keep up. I know we sing the song, when we been there 10,000 years. God's like, get over it. You're still thinking time. You're in the eternal world still thinking time. It's a whole nother dimension, and Adam's put in it. So the moment Adam eats, he dies. So that could answer where all the brothers and sisters of Cain and Abel came from, because he was definitely afraid of some people. So who else is here? Well, this is just an opinion. Chew the meat, spit out the bones, and don't create a cult. The opinion is, I believe it is very possible that God made Adam and Eve and told them to multiply and take over the earth, and they obeyed God. And they started multiplying and taking over the earth, and kids were born, and girls were born, and boys were born, and they're multiplying. And the devil's like, these people are going to take over here. I can't have this. I've got to stop this plan, because these people can multiply and I can't. So that's a problem for the devil. These creatures can multiply. They can create their own species. Wouldn't you know the devil would love that, to create his own species? He can't, but we can. We can multiply our species. So the devil is brilliant. Never think that he's a little pitchfork horned fella. He's brilliant. And what he's going to do is powerful, because this is what God says to Adam and Eve. I've given you all sorts of trees that grow up, trees that are beautiful and have delicious fruit, and I put them in the middle of the garden, 2 of them, a tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. God sticks these 2 trees in the middle of the garden, and this is what he says about the tree that's on the right. He said, look, you can do anything, kids, but the one thing you can't do is be in charge of good and evil. That's my call. Leave good and evil alone, because the moment a human gets in charge of good and evil, death is going to happen. Now, that in and of itself is a challenging conversation, because how do you know what death is? Nobody's ever died. Well, it's like showing up and he goes, now don't eat that or you're going to die. And then he walks off, and I'm sure they said, what do you think that meant? Die. What do you think death is? I don't know. You know anybody that's ever died? I don't know. Go ask the elephant. Mr. Elephant, do you know what death is? I don't know what death is. Go ask the giraffe. Mr. Giraffe, God said if we eat the fruit, we die. Do you know what death is? Now, little kids, I don't know what death is, but if Daddy told you don't eat the fruit, I wouldn't eat the fruit. Oh, Mr. Giraffe, because I think animals could talk. I know that's weird too, but they chatted with them. And the end result is they're like, yeah, the big guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I think I'll eat the fruit. And so they bit the fruit. And the moment they bit the fruit, here's what happened. How does an angel, a created being who's eternal, take out a human being who's eternal? Because you can't kill them, you can't outlast them. Here's what you do because you're brilliant. You're going to catch them with God's own promise. Because Lucifer knows God cannot lie. If the one thing the devil knows is I'm a liar, but God can't lie. So the way I'm going to get them is I'm going to hold God to his own truth because I know their Father that created us cannot lie. And the God that said, if you eat the fruit, you die, the way I'm going to take them out is I'm going to hold God to his word. All I got to do is get them to eat. As soon as I get them to eat, I'll back off and I'll let God finish what he promised. If you eat, you die. So the devil steps in, tempts them, they eat, and then the devil just steps back and God steps in and goes, okay, here we go. I think at that moment, God said, we're going to count time now. And time started ticking. We call it the prophetic time clock, where the gospel message begins to insert itself into human beings. And God steps in and kind of rebukes Adam and rebukes Eve, and then steps into the serpent and says, okay, look, here's what we're going to do. You're cursed, but her seed is going to crush your head. Now, this is a powerful thing because the devil steps back and turns us over to God. I got them to obey me, and they trusted me because I'm a liar, but now that they trusted my lie, I'm going to back off and let your truth take over. Now you got to kill them. I'm not going to be the one to destroy them. You are, because you made that promise. You promised them they would die. So I'm going to back up. I'm going to let y'all handle this, and I'm just going to watch it. And now the devil has us right where he wants us. Why? Because the devil really doesn't need you for anything. He can outlast you. That devil we're talking about has been here for 6,000 years playing the game with us humans. So if you think your little 80 years is going to be a threat to him, he could care less. He will outlast you. When we bury you, he will be with your children. And when we bury your kids, he'll show up to your grandkids. He's going to outlast you. That's how powerful he is. He's in every generation waiting on the next generation to show up. He is so powerful that he's working overtime to stop humans from multiplying. But know this, he can outlast you. If you think, I just got to hold on another week, he'll make it 8 days. If you think, if I could just get to old age, no, he'll beat you at old age. He's a spirit being that's eternal, and he can outlast every human. So now, why are we a problem to him? We're a problem to him because God brings a remedy in this war. And God steps in, and we're going to see what that remedy is in a minute. It's the seed of the woman that's going to crush his head. And the devil is going to do everything he can to stop God's promise because he knows the promise is real. He knows that God cannot lie. So this is the end result. At that moment, when Adam and Eve sinned, the devil becomes a father. He becomes the father of all the kids on planet Earth. The problem is not humans are evil or good. That's kind of the way we preach. You're evil and you need to become good and get saved. It's not that you're evil or good and you need to get saved. It's that you're in the wrong family. Now think this through. Genesis chapter 2, he says this, if you eat that tree, you die. And so now the devil's got a thing. How can I get these humans to eat the tree? Because if they eat the tree, God's got to do it. God's got to live up to his promise. So here's how he does it. He wants to create children of his own image. As soon as the kids that God created trust Lucifer, Lucifer, the serpent, the devil, the dragon, whatever we label him, he becomes the father, which is what Jesus said, your father, the devil. How does he do it? He gets you to doubt the Father's wisdom. Here's what's funny. Do you know that the devil doesn't ever doubt God's wisdom? But we humans do? Do you know how powerful the devil is? That in the book of Job, he shows up in Job and says, look, the reason I can't get him is because you always hedge him about. The devil thinks more highly of God than most Christians. We're over here going, I just don't know if I can trust him. And the devil is, you can trust him. I'll tell you how I know you can trust him, because he said y'all were going to die and you were his creation, and he took that true. He said the moment you all eat, you die. I proved that his word is his bond, because he literally allowed his own creation to die because he cannot lie. And we get in the Bible and look, I just don't know if I can trust him. I'm like, what? The devils of hell trust him. Why couldn't you? Because the devil wants you to doubt God's wisdom. Why would the devil want you to doubt God's wisdom? Because you're now in charge of the tree. We humans determine good and evil now. From the moment we ate, we're like, God, keep your hands off the tree. We now are the ones that call good, good, and evil, evil. And by the way, we just want you to know now that we're in a place of being our own God, that we will manage this thing called good and evil. So sometimes you may have called it good, but we may call that evil, and you may call it evil, but we call it good because we control the tree now. So God backs off and goes, okay, that's the way the game is going to be played. I'll hold the tree of life, and I'll still offer it to you, but I'm going to give you humans the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And now that evil is here, we blame God. I don't know how God could let all this evil be here, because you took the tree from him. You think it's his fault? It's like, don't eat that tree of good and evil. Okay, thanks. It's just my tree. I love a tree. I'm in charge of good and evil now. I'm gonna make the decision of what's good. And then about 4,000 years later, here we are, 6,000 years later, and we all looking at God like, I don't know why God let all this evil happen. Why don't we still hug the tree? I don't know why God lets babies die in suffering, because you got a hold of the tree. And you know you don't want to let go of that tree. Because if you let go of the tree, you got to step into, he's the one now that determines good and evil and not you. And I know this about humans. We often don't like what he thinks. So that's why we love him and put the Bible over here like, that's really awful. I just want him to love me. Let's talk love, not wisdom. Just love. That's the problem. So what do? You get him to believe a lie. Because you're the father of lies. What is the lie? My body, my choice. Now, my body, my choice is not anything new. I know it's a talking point of the Democrats and Republicans. And I know that's how we got people to elect who we wanted. Because the Democrats look at the Republicans and go, you fascist, misogynist, homophobic, yeah, you little garbage people, and you won't let us be in charge of our uterus. And then we look over at them, you little snot, conniving, little woke-minded, liberal-minded, perverted, baby-killing people. And all we're doing is both of us just holding on to our tree. You little misogynistic, homophobic people. Well, why don't you let go of your tree, you little baby-killing abortion people that think a man can be a woman? You don't even know what a woman is. They're holding on to their tree. How dare you say I don't know what a woman is, and you got your tree? Then tell me what a woman is. And then they got their tree. I don't know what a woman is, but I do. And we're just watching it. And we love it. We're like, and then here's the devil. Don't worry about being a Christian. Just pick a tree. Just come over to the red camp. Put your MAGA hat on that's red. But now we're so smart, we turned it into a black cap. The black MAGA hat, because Elon's in charge. And I got my little black hat. Oh, I got Elon on my team now. I feel better. Oh, I got black people voting for us now. And women voting for us. A Hispanic vote. We got all the vote. We must be right. And then this little Todd over here, we better regroup. Something happened. And the reality is, both teams just have a tree. And both teams think they're right. And God's over here going, both of you need to repent. I am the life. So that my body, my choice is not the LGBTQ Planned Parenthood mantra. My body, my choice was Adam and Eve snubbing their nose at God and saying, forget you, this is my body and this is my choice. So God backs off and goes, oh, that's what it is. It is your body and you do have a choice. So my body, my choice was not the talking points of abortion. My body, my choice was the birthplace of Lucifer into humanity. And if you want to know if he's still playing his game, my body, my choice is still today. We still talk about it today. And then the right says, you're killing babies. You're murdering babies. And then this side holding onto their tree says, it's not even a baby. It's a parasite. It's not even a fetus. It's not even a sentient being yet. And then this side goes, well, you can't kill it till it's got a heartbeat. And then this side goes, I can kill it anytime I want all the way up to birth. And God's just sitting back here going, see what mess you make when you both hold your own trees? My body, my choice was played out at the very first human. This is what you need to understand about God. My body, my choice. No, it's not. You are the temple of the Almighty God. I bought you with a price. You're not your own. You belong to me. Die to yourself. Crucify yourself and come unto me. It's not your choice. It's my will. Do you not hear the words of Jesus? Not what I want, but what you want. Jesus was destroying my body, my choice. This body has been given to me by God, but God, it is yours. I am yours. I'm called by your name. And though suffering may be vital, I want your will. And then we step into creation of the new creation to be born again. And then we still want to live my body, my choice. I want to do whatever I want. I just want him to love me. No! So what happened is Adam and Eve birthed murder and death. The first kid after the eat was a murderer. The second kid got killed, death. My body, my choice, the fruit of it is murder and death. That's why abortion can be such a profound demonic thing, because it's the murder and death of a human being in the mother's womb who has a body and choice. That's why it's so divisive today. But there's no denying this. Let's don't talk about women today. Let's just go back that the first mother that said, my body, my choice, the first thing that came out was murder, and the second thing was death. So obviously not much good comes out of my body, my choice. Listen to this, we'll end here. This is the written account, Genesis 5:1, of the descendants of Abraham. When God created human beings, he made them to be like himself. We've seen that. He created a male and female. He blessed them and he called them human. And when Adam was 130 years old, my belief is that's 130 years after he ate the fruit, he became the father of a son who was, get ready, just like him and in his very image. Here's my belief. We are wrong when we say humans are in the image of God. You're not in the image of God. You were. You started out that way. But now you're in the image of Adam. And Adam is in the wrong family with the wrong father doing the wrong thing. And every human from this moment that has ever been birthed on planet Earth has now been birthed with the wrong image, not the image of God, and you've been birthed to the wrong father. So every kid, when you're born, good or bad, whether you've got good parents or bad, everybody, even the best of the best people, are born in the wrong family with the wrong father. And when we say we're all just in the image of God, no, you're not. You're in the image of your fallen father, Adam, and you're in the wrong family, and you have the wrong daddy. So when Jesus, this is what we're going to see in the future, when Jesus shows up, what does he say? You must be born again. In other words, I'm going to take you out of the wrong family, and I'm going to bring you over into my family. And I'm going to create a new creation where old things have passed away, and now all things are become new. And get ready. Oh, this is a good one. Do you know why the New Testament says you've been adopted? Come on, you cannot read the New Testament and avoid the word you've been adopted. You have been adopted into his family. How do you adopt a child? You cannot adopt the children you birth. You can only adopt the kids that aren't yours. So when we step in and go, do you not know that God, we were enemies and he called us his children? Do you not know that we were not his kids? But he stepped in and said, look at that motley crew of little people hugging the wrong tree. What are you going to do with them? Kill them? Yeah, I'm going to adopt them. Oh, come on, somebody. He looked at you and your snottiness and he said, I think I'll adopt that kid. And he looked at you in all of your failures, your lies and your perversion and our wokeness and all the things we do, holding onto our little tree, thinking how wonderful we are as humans. And he stepped in and said, you're all in the wrong family. That kind of sounded like it was Monty Python. You all have the wrong father. I better quit, it's getting late. And then he says this, and I want to adopt you. Why would a God adopt kids that are already his kids? You're not his kids. That's why you have to be adopted. That's why you have to stop telling people we're all in the image of God. Because if you're born in the image of God on planet Earth, you don't need to be born again. You don't need to be adopted. And you don't need a Savior. And you don't need to worry about judgment. But when you believe that we're all in the wrong family with the wrong daddy, salvation feels mighty good. Come on, give God a shout of praise. Stand up with me if you will.